Hello, everybody. This is a brief study guide. I can't say study guide. This is just a brief review for your third exam, your third and final, which is comprehensive. Now, I'm not going to go over what we've already discussed. I believe you'll find that the comprehensive questions have been well reviewed in the past, very fair questions. You folks aren't going to have a bit of trouble with this. Now, the content for this test, other than comprehensive, I'll touch on briefly with you. Now, this in no way covers everything that we've had since your last exam. It in no way covers what's on the exam. It's just a review of some of the highlights of what we've gone over. So I have to be quick for YouTube. Bear with me and I'll run through this with you. Thinking of mental assessment, you want to understand fully the importance of assessing for person, place, and time, for orientation. It's some of the ways that you assess for a person's mental competence or mental state. How many serial numbers should a patient be able to repeat? What sequence? How do you assess recent memory? What psychiatric conditions are considered progressive and irreversible? If a patient is delirious, does he maintain orientation and attention over time? Or does he lose that particular aspect? And then on a mini mental exam, who should you give these exams to when you're working with a patient? Is it every patient that comes through the door? Or are there particular ones that you would want to focus on? Breast exams, thinking breast and genital exams. For females, if you're doing a breast exam, what does your text say about documentation? How do you divide the breast? What part of your hand do you do breast exams with? So we'll review your text on this. What's the best way to feel that tissue? Compare a young 20-year-old menopausal female with a postmenopausal mid-50s, mid-60s. What's the difference in tissue likely to be? If you have a freely movable nodule in a young lady, are you concerned about this being cancer? What might you expect breast cancer to feel like? What does your text feel about that, or say about that, I'm sorry, about what actual cancer may feel like? Your text talks about orange peel skin. Where might you see this and what might it mean? And anatomically, where is the tail of Spence? Understand that there's usually a question about the tail of Spence, where it's located. On pelvic exams, the obvious, know the anatomy and how to assess, including the glands. What's the terminology used? How do you document what's normal and what's abnormal? What history would a female give that would make you a little more suspicious of ovarian cancer and the need to fully assess? Look what your text says about findings on the surface of the cervix. If you find abnormals, what might that mean? When do Pap smears begin? What does your text say about the importance of Pap smear exams? When do they begin and how often should they occur? For males, there's a particular history that makes you suspicious of testicular cancer. If a male gives you a history of a non-descended testicle, or there may be other history points that you need to review that might make you more suspicious of testicular cancer. How do you assess for a inguinal hernia? The vas deferens, what's normal, what's abnormal, what might it appear to be if you were doing an exam. Understand hernias, the names of them, the locations of them, not just genital or groin or inguinal, but all hernias for that matter. Musculoskeletal, know the difference between osteo and rheumatoid arthritis. The difference between OA and RA. What joints are affected by each, unilateral, bilateral. What might you find? How would you document? What history would make you suspicious that it's rheumatoid instead of osteo? Know how to assess the strengths of muscles. The trapezius is one that is often asked about. What maneuver might you use for a patient to assess trapezius strength? On carpal tunnel, and we'll talk about this in a minute on signs, different assessment signs. Know how to assess for carpal tunnel entrapment. Neurological is going to be big. Know your cranial nerves, know how to assess them, know what it means. There's really no way of doing that besides memorizing cranial nerves. Know what each cranial nerve controls. Know you have to know that in order to know which cranial nerve is involved if there's a problem in assessment. Know the technique that you use to assess cranial nerves. And finally, and this covers a large area, folks, but it's just like cranial nerves. You must memorize it to know it. There are various signs the text talks about that will be on the test. These signs you will revisit on your credentialing exam after you get out of school and you sit for certification. You're going to have to know these, and you will use them in your patient assessment. So understand Thalen, Gower, Tinel, Tinel, whether you say Tinel or Tinel, Homan, Murphy, McBurney, Psoas, Psoas, the Psoas sign, rebound, straight leg, Thomas, Drawer, McMurray, Valgus, Lachman, Lachman, Romberg, and Kernig, Kernig. All of those signs are important. They vary the entire anatomy. That some and probably multiple will be not only on this test but on your certification. Same way with the cranial nerves. It's all lots of information, I realize, but the best thing to do for this test, for practice, for licensure, is to write these things down and really memorize them. Just commit them to memory now. A short review that covers a lot of material, I realize, but you may see any or all of these areas on your exam. Best of luck to you. You guys are going to do great. This is a cumulative thing that you've done since the beginning of class. So don't stress too much about it, but certainly study and be prepared for it. Wish you all the best of luck.